Hello, how are you guys?
Good.
All right, how you doing?
Good. Appreciate you jumping in here. Looks like we're just getting started. Hopefully, a couple others will show up. I did talk to a couple people on calls today that said they wanted to join, but it depended on how the work schedule went. And it looks like Vanessa cannot join. She just sent a message. Busy day, though. Thank you for taking time out to come. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, it's been a busy couple days, but it's good.
Well, I sure enjoyed your presentation this morning. You did a great job with that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, like it's always fun. I just appreciate being part of the community that allows me to test concepts and ideas and puts me to the test of stepping outside my comfort zone to see if I can actually do it.
Yeah, it can all be used for growth. And I think if we approach it from that manner, then,
Mhm.
at least if anybody comes out of it better, maybe we can take something individually. It's kind of how I've had to approach it. I'm still learning a lot. In fact, it was I guess I better say a growth experience to put out those videos I did yesterday because I absolutely hated them. Part of me inside died. I felt like somebody
Oh.
somewhere kicked a kitten because it just, I have things in my mind on the way things should be. And those videos weren't it, but I really wanted to get that content out so I could refer to it today.
Yeah, yeah.
If
No,
I can get better
they're
at that.
great. They're great, but it's such a tough like I see what you're saying because the topics are so complex and it's like where do you start? Because it's you could go so deep and so technical so quickly. But you did a great job with
Well, thank you.
explaining tokenization and everything. No.
Probably my biggest welcome, Tiffany. I'm glad you could make it. I think you're on mute there.
Thank you. Yeah.
Tiffany's just new to our community, so we're excited to have her. And this is Stacy and Kevin. They are foundational members to our community, so we're
Nice.
excited that
Nice.
they're.
Nice meeting you both.
Yes.
But in answer to you, Stacy, one of the things that I've come up with is, not only do I need to teach those concepts, but in my mind, I have so many different ways that I could represent them that I think would be excellent representation to help people understand better, but they require visual creation that I don't really have the skills to do, at
Mm.
least in a way to make myself happy. Excuse me.
We are our own worst critics. That's this
Yeah,
yeah. It's where
So,
never satisfied.
so some of those concepts, yeah, they quickly can be very daunting. I hope I explain them well, and if I don't, I would at least hope the community feels comfortable enough to ask some follow-up questions, and then we can build on that. But I'm kind of excited for the things we've got to show today. But before I get into any of that, um, have you guys worked with anything new this week? I know Stacy, you mentioned this week you spent quite a bit of time with the new form stuff, and in fact, I think Kevin was there. I don't. Tiffany wasn't there, so she might be interested in hearing a little about it. And then I'd also love for you to tell us about any progress that you made on the deep fake and AI spam stuff. Those resources Glenn sent over seem pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, I'm still exploring what Glenn sent over. I'm kind of compartmentalizing my projects, and so that is later in the week. So I've kind of put them all in a
I get it.
folder to review when it comes to the my volunteer kind of initiative when it comes to educating seniors. The formless, like I took you guys through the demo. I hope it made sense. It was
It,
like,
yeah.
yeah, and I really liked it. Tiffany, formless is, I'll just throw it in a chat here. Are you familiar with Typeform at all? It's basically like surveys, no? It's it's an interesting advancement when it comes to collecting feedback from either your customers or anybody. And so Typeform is more traditional. They don't use like a lot of AI. They're starting to. So they launched Formless AI, which is a lot more AI integrated. And so it's basically getting feedback from people in a more conversational approach. So shared it with the crew this morning, and I like it so far. I just sent out a bunch of links to my peers and family and friends to kind of get their feedback based on the questions that I shared with everybody. So we'll see how that works out. The other thing is, I gotta find it, is super cool. It's more nerdy than anything, but I don't know if I can pause until I find it, but somebody else can speak. But it is, Google has this neural network platform that's free right now that you can upload a bunch of images and train it on images. So it's just fascinating for me. So yeah, that's my next tool that I'm going to explore and maybe create a video for. I just wish I could remember.
I
It's not
forget
a
the
very good
name of it.
name.
Yeah, I
Pardon?
forget the name of it. It was really cool though. I actually went through it a while ago. What amazed
Teachable.
me is how few shots it took to train it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it was like a microcosm of training. And I made a note here that I'm like, wow, that'd be cool. I'll show a video on it. But yeah, if you have it and want to show it here, it
Yeah.
really is amazing, and it's an introductory course, more or less, to how AI learns and is trained on data.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking of is my prof took us through, and forgive me, Gary, if you shared it before, it's the teachable machine, but it's like it's basically what I'm going to do is find a bunch of images on Kaggle or, a data set that is image based, and then see how well, its predictive analysis is when I start dropping, images after it's trained. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. I think it's definitely for those that kind of just want to understand it. It's definitely not for organizations to use yet. But I see it as an entry point for people to kind of understand how neural networks work. Um, yeah, maybe, once I figure it out, I'll chat with you on the side because I think there's not really a user-friendly interface. Neural networks are so fascinating, but to kind of explain, and since Gen AI is, based on that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and that's kind of what I saw as well. And I thought, and you're right. I just pulled it up here on my bookmarks. It was teachable machines. So we are
yeah.
talking about the same thing. They did a good job putting an interface to something that until now, and I haven't successfully done it because, like everything, I jumped in maybe a little too deep at the beginning.
Mhm.
But I started doing it at an AI level and programmatically, right? I was trying to pull down a local model and retrain it, and it got very complex, very quick. And
Mhm.
part of the comparison that I was trying to draw, in fact, on that message yesterday, I alluded to RAG and it being suitable for like 19 or 99% of the cases. That's really true because in most cases that I could think about where I perceived I needed to retrain AI, I can accomplish with RAG. And so it really narrows down this type of I need to retrain it to, yeah,
Mhm.
really few and far between.
Yeah, yeah. So it's fascinating. I like how it's getting to be, different companies are bringing tools to make you feel that you can actually execute things that you never thought you could do before. For me, it's on the data science side because I don't code. So it's just making machine learning that much more accessible to me. So excited about that. So I'm gonna, maybe in December, I'm gonna play around with that, create a video, a teachable machine. And I feel like I know enough about neural networks to educate to the audience about like the input layer, the hidden layers, and the output layers.
Mhm.
I just love it. Like if I, neural networks to me, the way I describe it is that they just wanted to recreate your brain on a computer. and see if they could create those neurons. And like, to be honest, we don't understand to this day how our brain actually works. So it makes sense that we cannot explain how a lot of these AI models work on unstructured data. And, if you think about it, these large language models are almost like a baby, like they're born and then they learn
Mhm.
so much, you got ChatGPT 2, then you got 3, then you got 4, then 5, and then, it's just, it's learning. And there's a fascinating discussion that I listened to yesterday, just interviews with Sam Altman and then also, oh God, Dario Amodeo, the guy from Anthropic,
Yeah.
where it's about scaling and that they were, these are interviews from way back when they felt that the larger the model, the smarter it gets.
Hmm.
And I didn't think about that. Like, I think it really, I thought it depends, because based on your objective, and the larger it gets, it may create more hallucinations and whatnot. But yeah, it's just, again, neural networks is just, I love it right now, and I
Well,
don't understand half of it.
and that's what I've been seeing too in my study. At first it was bigger, better, go with the frontier models, the Google
Yeah.
and their 2 million context. And the truth is, you really start missing the mark. So what I've done in some of my local research is pull down some of these models that have been trained specifically, and I've pulled them from Hugging Face. And just kind of a quick explanation on what that is. It's a site that hosts AI models that have been retrained. So the foundational models like Google, Llama, Gemini, they'll put out these models. And then earlier, like I mentioned, people don't really need to retrain it. These are the cases where people would retrain it, and they would go in and train it for a specific version. So one of the models that has come out of China is Qwen. That's Jack Ma and his Alibaba project. They've retrained that specifically on coding stuff, and it's using, it's Qwen 2.5. I forget how many billion parameters, but it's amazing. And I pulled down some of these other models. Like, do you ever get the feeling when you chat with AI, you can always spot the AI answer? It uses words like revolutionary and, just
Yes.
stuff that nobody ever
Yeah.
uses in language. Well, I've pulled down some of these smaller models. And when I say smaller, I'm talking typically around the 8 to 12 billion parameter range. To put that in perspective, most models that you're talking to online are several hundred billion, like Llama's 405 billion. 72 billion is pretty much the standard when you consider if it's 72 billion or above, then you're a large language
Hmm.
model. 8 billion is kind of that happy medium uh, that you can run on your computer type of device. Now, if you want to get down into 2 and 3 billion parameters, those are on edge devices like your phone. But these highly trained 8 billion devices, they converse actually more naturally than the larger LLM versions. The language is
Interesting.
far more difficult. So uh,
Yeah.
it's crazy to see what that's
It is
changed.
very, very interesting. Tiffany, we went really nerdy into neural networks. What is your background, and where is your? I know, I just like, I know Kevin can, but I know Gary and I can go deep. What is your background?
I mean, I heard bit and pieces that I recognize, but definitely this is like way above my my brain cells capability. I mean, I only I was talking to Gary today. It's like I'm a state worker, so there's a lot of government info that just so outdated, public informations, but it's like every time we explain the same thing to, let's say, the public call or something like that, we explain the same thing over and over, and nothing like that ever been used in AI to be more modern or simplify. And that's what I love AI for, using some of it for. And I'm like rudimentary, right? But I was so I work as I go into to backtrack a little bit. I saw the mention in a post that you are or someone is doing deepfake or explaining
It's
about
Stacy.
deepfake or
Yeah.
spam, things like that. And my work with I go into adult day healthcare centers, so it's like a lots of older adults. In the state of California alone, we have 300 of these centers. And years ago, we never they kind of insulated, so we don't hear a lot of scam. Um,
Mhm.
they've been taken advantage of a lot, but now it's rampant, right?
Hmm.
Like the staff spend so much time solving their financial problems, dealing with deepfakes,
Mhm.
like so and so call and sound
Mhm.
just like grandma or a cousin or nephew or something, and they send money over. That's the negative side. Um, and then there's another side to it. I was at a center recently in the Bay Area that Bay Area, I meant like Silicon Valley, San Jose, and all that stuff. And then there was a very interesting, they have a dementia, a centers that have a dementia unit. It's that I forgot to tell you this, Gary, was there's a gentleman come in and offer a weekly kind of workshop sessions where we call them participant or clients or patients, they would start remembering bits and pieces of the past. And
Mhm.
then this gentleman would type in what they describe, and then it turned out into photos or images. I think it was using, is it Midjourney or something like that? It was using something, I don't know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
it's one of them.
There's
Midjourney is very popular.
yeah, something like that, where he was typing their descriptions and what they remember or recall of memories. And then it's come out to be images of cars that they used to drive with certain license plates. So it's really cool. And then these
There's a
would
holodeck that's
start
been
to
worked like that too.
um
There's been a holodeck that they're using there in California in some of the places
oh,
and taking some of the pictures of the photo albums of the people in the benching units. And then they can see these images coming back and stuff, and it's actually helping them with their thinking
Oh,
and stuff and
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
that's
That
cool.
that's what it was so cool to see it in person. And then some of these patients I'm talking about, like they are one step away from institutionalized, right? And
Mhm.
Right.
and they able to, they're able to see certain things. They go, oh, that was my car, and I was like, whoa, that was so beautiful. Or
Yeah.
they like, oh, that was where I used to grow up, and just the way they describe it, and he was able to,
It's all of a sudden the light goes off.
yes, yeah.
That's really
So
They
they
cool.
just
have a
lit up.
few. I love it. A few centers like that. I'm hoping eventually they move forward to video. Um, that's even more bring to life.
They're using VR helmets too.
Yes, yes, there are some company. I haven't seen that one, but I heard of that one.
Yeah.
So that's what I've seen with the good stuff. And then where I work, we just like, no, you cannot touch AI in any shape or way or form. So, so they not, and they would provide training for us. It's more like I felt like to scare us
Mhm.
than to help us be more productive.
Mhm.
Because I think I don't know every other state, but this state is kind of like, um, don't get us sued over whatever you putting out there. So yeah, I think that is their biggest fear. So I felt like more the private sectors maybe benefit from all this. And so, like I said, I don't get much training or learning about this more than, and everything out there look complicated to me. So that's why
Like what
I
we were
end up.
just talking about neural networks. Yeah,
Well,
sorry about that.
No, no, no,
well,
no. I love it. I love hearing it. Yeah.
in regards to your stuff too, Tiffany, I don't think what you've got there is a California issue. I think it's a governmental issue and just
Yeah.
not knowing how to deal with this. Now, we've talked about this in the past on this community as well as another community that the members here are on. Um, the government just really doesn't know how to handle this and deal with it. And so, despite always being slow at everything, they're
Mhm.
extremely cautious and slow to their adaptation. It really is unfortunate on these things. But
Yeah.
One more thing about the nerding out, because Stacy, as you brought up learning about the neural networks, have you ever heard of the YouTuber Three Blue, One Brown?
Yeah, I've been watching his videos for
That
months now.
that
Yeah.
guy is amazing. Now he's definitely deep end stuff, but he's an amazing teacher. I linked his stuff here. He's got like a 7 video course on AI that's just amazing. But
Yeah.
thank you
I
for pulling us
no
out of the deep and directing it back to Tiffany. Tiffany, I
no
apologize.
worries.
Every
No
No,
week,
no,
worries. I
no.
can
I
leave
I
it.
every
love it.
week I
Yeah.
say it's not going to get like that, and then I just totally go, IBM white shirt and glasses. So I see Colin popped in. Colin, thank you for joining us. He's on mute. He may have stepped away. Oh, there he comes. Welcome. So, are there any other new things this week that you guys want to talk about that you experienced or tested with? All right, crickets.
Well, I've started on like Cascade and Mind Palace. Have you guys been using any of that? I put a link in the chat.
I have heard of Mind Palace, done nothing with it. I have not even heard of Cascade. Can you take a second and tell us about them? Share your screen if you
Well,
want.
not much of anything I can tell about because I just started on it.
Sure. Can you give us a summary of what they're meant to do? Like, what is their niche?
It seems like they've got some things to do with LinkedIn and stuff too. It's still a lot of automations. I'm trying to figure out how to get this thing to click on. My internet's not working good.
Okay, no worries.
It's because the
Oh, there we go.
weather. Yeah. So just discovered some of the things they've been doing. I haven't quite got into it very deep. Like I said, I was working on some of it this week. I really like some of the agents, the multi-agents, tools for agents. There's some
Okay.
intriguing things here that you know,
Huh.
I think it's going to be a good tool, but I haven't quite. I can't really tell you enough about it right now.
That's fine. What I would do is encourage you all, kind of as core members, as you find these cool tools. If you want to start a community post within school on it and just tell us what you know and start a dialogue. There are so many of tools out there like this. It's just impossible to keep up with them. So, in fact, I did spend some time this week with Gamma, Stacy, based on your
Oh,
recommendation.
did
And so
you? Nice.
it's just an exposure thing. And I would love to see things like this discussed in the community.
Yeah, Gamma was fun. I'm using it a lot more. It's replaced Canva for me.
Okay.
Yeah, I canceled my Canva subscription. Tiffany Canva, I don't know if you use it, but it's basically, you might have templates and designers in-house,
Yeah.
but Canva is just making it easier for you to build presentations, social posts, all of that. Like it's good and it's been around for a while, but Gamma is really focused on the presentation slide, and I'm just blown away. So I'll just write a document in Word, all text, and then I upload it to Gamma, which is a platform, and it can turn it into a PowerPoint presentation with images and everything, and it looks
Yeah.
beautiful. So I spent so much wasted time on building PowerPoint decks, and this has been, I love it. I love this for teaching, education, and stuff. And one of the best things is that it's responsive design. So if you create it within Gamma and you share the link, it it knows what device you're on, so it totally reformats the presentation to go from
Mhm.
vertical to, horizontal. So I've been having a lot of fun with that one. I'm glad you're testing it out, Gary. And it's not me, it's
Yeah.
Santiago. So it's like that community. That's a great thing about the community is sharing tools, and people may not jump on and adopt it right away, but eventually they'll. It's fun when
Yeah.
they do.
It's got some great stuff to it.
Mhm.
Are the images on Gamma safe? I mean, is it copyright free to use?
So it depends on which direction you want. You like Unsplash, you can choose images from Unsplash, which they say is royalty fee free. You can search the web, which isn't, and you can upload your own images to replace.
Oh,
But the design and layout is pretty fantastic. So it's so easy to use. It's just there's a little bit of a learning curve to kind of like understand the website, how it functions. So, I kind of, started using it. Then I went, I don't know. And then I tried it again 2 weeks later, and I was just like, gosh, it's so good. And you can download it as a PowerPoint. So you can, if you need to have a PowerPoint version, you can export it as a PowerPoint or a PDF or anything.
perfect. I'll check that out. I just use Canva very lightly, but
Oh, okay.
that
Yeah.
definitely sound great. Thank you.
Well, and what I'm going to do here is maybe take us into our next session or section, excuse me, and talk a little about the community project that we talked about a few weeks ago and give you a little status update and then show you some demos that I've got. Let me go ahead and share my screen here, and you should be seeing that hopefully.
Mhm.
Everybody see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So a few weeks ago, based on our first call, we had talked about coming up with a project specifically to help onboard people in the community just to identify areas on where they might start to learn about AI. And I put together this roadmap. Now, these documents that I'm referring to here, they're actually attached on the agenda from a few weeks ago. But the steps in terms of how I would architect an application to do this, of course, would to go through and basically generate a really loose requirements document that kind of outlines, well, if this were to work, what would it do? And that's what this document I'm working from, this community project. And the very first thing that I considered we needed to do was to get input from the users. And this would be in the form of a questionnaire. It would be, text, audio interactions, or even video. Now, the text interactions could happen with maybe like a customized chat GPT prompt that had an action to push it to a database at the end, or it could be used with like a type form or even, one of the more advanced form stuff, things that Stacy has talked about, which is probably the better solution from a text-based perspective. The video stuff does add some other challenges to it, but when it comes down to it, when we're concerned about the content, in most cases, video and audio are going to be the same because we would extract the audio from the video and then process it separately. The reason I had the video there was, in essence, to support video-based interviews or podcasts that might be like that. So at a certain point, the audio and the visual paths are actually going to merge. So the first thing that I wanted to do was to pursue the audio thing because, one, it's different than the text. It's a little bit new. And that's kind of what I wanted to show you today and explain about the type of services that can be used with that. Now, in addition to that, we'll talk a little about the pricing and how it all works, but I kind of want to give you a view of the end for the beginning of what I want to show in this demo. The audio interface is going to be with an AI chatbot, and at the end of the interview, which I've limited it right now down to a couple minutes just to simplify the processing and speed things up, but the audio will be extracted, and it's extracted already translated, and it's got timestamps on it. Because conversation always flows a little differently than written text, it sounds different, it flows different. We need to parse that input. And one of the first steps we're going to take, you'll see, I'll show you, is where we ask AI, you know, the AI assistant was the interviewer, the user represents the user, separate these, but also to correlate a given question with an answer. So we're asking AI to take the entire transcript and break it down into chunks. You know, I want this summary for answer one, this summary for answer two. Normalizing the data, normalization is just a nerdy term to make things all look the same. A common example might be if you've typed your phone number in certain applications, some of them want your prefix in parentheses, others want you to separate it with a dash, and sometimes they're just all jammed together. We want things to look the same because once we get things looking the same, it really makes the computer's job a lot easier. So what I'm doing with this parse data back here, I already know the form of how the AI is going to ask the question, but I can't really project how the user is going to respond. And sometimes they can be rambling and go on and be incoherent, much like I am a lot of the time. And so the normalization step down here is I'm asking AI, hey, what did they just say? Can you simplify that for me? So we're trying to take what they've said and, in essence, reword it in most cases, drop things like filler words and so forth. Once we've got that normalized data, we once again want to standardize the output because now we're going to want to store it and do some processing later. And then we're going to get into storing the data. And then later next week or whenever, we'll ask the AI to evaluate it and group it. But steps 1 through 4, I've got a very simple demo, and that's what I want to show you today. Now, if any of you have questions as I'm going through this, by all means, please stop me and ask questions so that I can kind of bring these together and go through them. Are there any questions here before we move forward?
My one question is around, you're making it conversational, and you said that if somebody is rambling, it's trying the AI tool's trying to, remove the noise and get to the core points. Does that also trigger the model to repeat what that person said and seek alignment to make sure, or is it just taking that information and doing it in the back end and not checking back with the person it's engaging with?
So the interview itself is meant to be a one and done. However, the
Okay.
data, from a sysadmin perspective on the back end, I never get rid of data. So I do retain their original answer as well as the parsed answer. And what will happen is I'll go through an iterative training loop because the way I'm asking it to parse, I may need to improve that prompt that AI is using or add some additional logic. So there will be some checks and balances, but those will be on the back end because if I, as a human, were to look at that and see their response versus what the AI came with, I could do that pretty much without involving the user, especially when we intend on using this data from an aggregate perspective. You generally paint with a broad brush there. You try and get as many edge cases as you can, but it's never perfect. Can you all see my screens here that I've brought across?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Are there any other questions before I move on? Okay. So we're going to start with an AI voice agent here. There are a lot of players in this workspace. I am using a service called Play.AI. Another big player in the industry is called VAPI, as in voice API. They also have a company called VoiceFlow. There are a lot. There are 2 pretty good voice automation things right now that are used with these type of agents. 11 Labs is a really big player in voice automation right now in AI. Many of these services make calls out to consume 11 Labs. Play.AI actually has their own voice API they use. They're kind of in-house. Now, Microsoft, or excuse me, OpenAI has their Whisper technology, which is what we use in the OpenAI advanced voice. And that's amazing. As near as I could tell, most of these players weren't using that, but that's just splitting hairs at the technical detail. The way that these services work is they generally charge by minute, and there are a number of things they can do. Some of them will embed AI into the system to help drive and narrate the conversation. But the processing that we're going to do with the data after the conversation, I'm not doing that within the Play.AI platform. Excuse me, I need to get a drink here. Sorry about that. So there will be some AI used within the platform here, and I'm going to show you how they actually choose the engine. It's very simple. I'm going to walk you through this first agent I've created. So to put it in perspective of what Play.AI chooses, the plan is relatively cheap, right? $9 a month, and you get 50 minutes of audio. And that can sound like a lot. However, what I found, especially when I put the AI in conversational mode, is these conversations could go on a really long time. And so we want just enough data, but not too much. So that's something I'm narrowing down. But you can see, of course, the more you pay, the cheaper it gets. But in general, figure 20 cents a minute. Play.ai is one of the cheaper services. Some of these get up around $1 a minute. So you want to be careful the provider you use. What I did, though, is I came in and I created an agent, and I called it Haas, just because I say that word all the time. What they've got here are a number of voices, of course, that you can choose from with varying accents. Now, I should be sharing my system audio. Let me know if you can hear this voice.
Hey, how's it going? I appreciate you clicking on my voice. So you wanted to chat?
Did you hear that?
It was faintly, but yes.
Then it was not pushing through. That is unfortunate. Okay, well, I thought I had it configured. It worked on my test, but neither here nor there. There are a number of voices. So I've chosen a voice that I think is appropriate. They're right up there, honestly, with 11 Labs. They do lack a little bit compared to the Whisper AI, which I think is really advanced in the advanced voice mode for ChatGPT. You can also clone your own voice if you want. Now, I just put a generic image up there. And then, of course, you can create these chatbots and change their privacy to public, to unlisted, to private. Then what we do is we get into kind of the heart of the agent. Now, at the very beginning, I just give it a phrase I want it to say. In this case here, I just wanted to say, I'm Haas. Can I ask you some questions about computer usage? And ask for your permission to start. Now, if I were to ask it things like, say, hey, what's the username? It's intelligent enough to adapt the conversation and it will ingrain your username. Now, I've gone through probably 50 different prompts here in training, and this is a very simplified version. If you go back to the PDFs that I had here, what I originally sent out was questions based in 10 sections, and they're like 30 questions in here, and it just was one too much to ask anybody to go through, because when I got in the phone conversation, I think I was on like question 4, and I was almost 10 minutes into one conversation because the AI kept prompting me and following up and digging deeper. So for this test, I've just told it that it's specialized in conducting interviews, and I'm only going to have it present these questions. And these will be, at the end, the groups or the buckets that those questions fall into. I have given it some limits. I've told it to try and make these 120 seconds. Now, this is really difficult here for AI to do because we're asking it to cognitively process the amount of things that have happened as we're going. The more optimum way to do this, and honestly, I was trying to break it, it was to give it a time frame. The more appropriate thing would have been to give this something based on words, and the average human speed is, I think, like 135 words a minute. So I would have said, have a 250-word conversation with the user. Probably would have been better. But nevertheless, I did put some boundaries on it. I told it to try and be focused, just to gather the information and not provide solutions or suggestions. What I did find is even during the interview, AI started coaching me on ways you could use it. Well, did you know you could do these things? Very much like is it typeless? Excuse me. Stacy, is it formless? Excuse me. Kind of how that adapts the follow-up questions. That's what it was doing. Now, I put this line here at the end to tell it to call a trigger. Now, this gets into a concept of agentic workflow, and I haven't really covered that in the community, but it's where you ask the AI to perform certain jobs. An agent in a workflow might be you have somebody in your day-to-day things. You might have something that helps you with calculations or budgets, and then you might know something about that looks up Google Maps and tells you if you're going to hit traffic. And that's really all they do. They work in these silos. That's the nature of an agentic workflow. What I've done here is I'm using agentic workflow, but I'm just using it to call a single trigger at the end of the call. And that's going to come over here into make.com, which is a workflow automation tool. And I'm going to ask it to do some stuff that ultimately is going to tie back into these first 4 steps that I outlined here. We're going to take the data, we'll gather it, we'll parse it, normalize it, and then format it. That's what this stuff is over here. And again, I'll walk you through that. So let me make this bigger here, shrink that down a little bit. Now, the next step when we come in here after we put in these prompts is I can tell the agent really how to behave. Let me zoom in a little there for you, where I tell it, to be professional, or I can give it a use case, like I want it to pretend you're Walter Cronkite or something like that. And it's a good thing this is an over 50 community because my kids wouldn't know who that is. Or you can tell it to be chatty, and my goodness, this one
eats up your budget.
Let's just say that would keep some people some company for a long time. Now, when you go into that, you do have an LLM that sits behind the agent that you're generating here. And right now I'm using 4.0 Mini. The reason is because it's really fast and it's really effective. I did try some of these other models. Earlier, you remember how I told you that Hugging Face has modules that were trained on very specific data? Hermes is a model that uses the open source Llama LLM, but it was retrained again on conversational data. So this is really good at making things sound natural. But if you see that's a 405 billion parameter, and it can kind of get slower than I felt comfortable with. So for now, we'll use Mini. This is really cool. Yesterday, I explained just briefly what a RAG system was. Now, Tiffany, RAG stands for Retrieval Augmented Generation. It's where a user can upload their own documents and allow AI to consume that content, but it only does it in small pieces. So if I had a 40-page document, I'm not really passing all 40 pages of that document to AI. I'm just going to pass things relevant to the current conversation. What I was doing with this knowledge base is I had actually used this data source of these questions to upload. As I mentioned, there are 10 sections, about 30 questions. And I had it kind of doing a round robin where it was just randomly pulling data from it and asking questions, which is pretty cool. 30 questions was too long for one interview, but having the random questions really took away the value that I'm looking for at the end of the aggregate questions. So for our demo today, I took that out and just went back in that prior step to those 3 questions that I listed. But this is specifically where you do that. This guardrail system here basically says, if it's not in the documents, don't talk about it. because what I found again is that AI, with its knowledge of everything it had been trained on, it wanted to tell me all about these other things. And I didn't want that, especially on a phone call interview. And then I just set some information here about date and time. This, of course, is where I authorize the agent that's going to make the call over to make.com. And then if I want, I can actually add a phone number to this at a low cost of $2 a month. So think about this from a support perspective. Maybe somebody wants to call in and ask information about that. So that's actually really handy. Now, in terms of this, I also have the ability to embed it on a website or code. We've got code. It's a real nice interface. But once we're done with that, it really comes down here to just getting the agent to work. Now, again, you remember how it's going to work. Here's what's going to happen, because I've done this enough ad nauseum. I am going to show you how this is going to work through just a little bit on the back end, so you see what you're experiencing. Then I'm going to have one of you do the demos, if that's okay. Let me come back in. Sorry, I maximized the wrong window. I will get into make.com, but the precept behind make.com is every one of these circles represents a module that does a little bit of logic. In this case here, a webhook means like one of those old operators at a telephone board that just listened to calls coming in, and the operator send me to whatever the house was. You know, my grandma's had to deal with that. That's what this does. And it's listening for that trigger that I just showed over there that says, when you're done, make a call to this. Then I make this call, and it's going to come back with some basic information, particularly an ID related to the conversation we just had. This step right here says download that conversation. Then I'm going to pass it into Chat GPT here, and I'll show you this step real quickly in terms of what we do. Again, I'm using O1 Mini here to keep it fast and keep the costs low. And I tell it that I've attached the audio interview, and I'll show you the output it comes in. It's a bunch of nerdy computer format. I tell it during the interview, we ask these 3 questions. I want it to analyze the data and respond with, not my typo, respond with 3 groups of data. And within each group, I want the actual user's response. And then I do want it to analyze and reword it and drop any filler words. And then, of course, I've told it to give the output. And here, of course, is the data that comes in. That's the workflow we're going to go through. Now, I take this share thing here. Who's going to be our guinea pig here? I'm going to paste this in chat. If I can get my chat window to come up.
Colin or I will do it. Or Tiffany, I don't know if you feel not like willing to test it out.
Just answer the questions, right?
Yeah, it should be pretty conversational, and I'm really hoping we can hear it. Now, I'm going to maximize this, and I'm going to basically tell this to start listening.
Yeah, sure.
Hold on, I forgot to say my model back here. All right, so if you just click on that link, and just to show people what that is here, I'm going to post that link in here. This is the interface that Tiffany's going to see. All you got to do is just click that talk button, and it's going to start interfacing with you.
On the Zoom call, it will show.
Did you see that? Do you know how to look at the chat link within Zoom?
Oh, the chat link. Sorry. I was just so focused on this.
No, that's okay.
All right. Scroll all the way down. You know. Okay, on the Play.AI agent, right, Haas?
Correct. Yes.
Yes. All right. Okay, let's open it up. Okay, so just click to on talk, right?
Yes. It should be talking to you. Can you not hear it? I wonder if it's conflicting with your Zoom session because it does jump in right away.
You could hear it, right?
No.
No, it's only because Zoom is blanking or it's taking out external noise, so we can't hear it. But I think Gary wants to make sure that you can hear it.
Oh yeah, it's asking me questions. So now I'm talking and it redirect me back to the questions again. So
Okay, so what we're going to do, in fact, go ahead and cancel that, and we'll just be quiet while you answer the interview, and we'll hear your side of the interview.
sure, yeah. No, no, it's funny because it's whatever I said, like I talk to you and it's a yeah, I can hear you, but let's go back to the questions again. So it keeps redirecting. It's like go back and go back and
It's following
but
direction.
yeah, but its voice, I don't know, Gary, if you know the voice is very lethargic. Did you pick that on purpose?
Well, I did. One, just because I was playing around, but one thing I didn't show you on this is when you come back in these, you can actually choose a specific speed for the voice.
Oh, okay.
And I
Yeah.
have it right now on 0.7, I believe. Yes.
Okay.
So
Maybe
I
that's
slowed it
why.
because I
Yeah.
wanted that Texas drawl. I lived in the South for a while.
Okay. Just thought, just want you to know it's a little like somebody who has no more energy left. Okay,
I'll
I'm
speed it
gonna.
up a little bit. Let me save that for you. I don't know if it'll work for you, but all right, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Data entry. Lots of informations to enter in. Responded to emails. Write in citations. Okay, it's and the thing. I took that back, Gary. Now it's too fast. So
Okay.
yeah,
No worries. Now, did it hang up or did you click end?
it said end conversation. The button from talk turned into end conversation.
Okay. Did you press that or say goodbye?
Oh, I pressed that because it didn't say anything else. Yeah.
Okay. If you press that, it actually terminates the conversation just a little bit early. And so it didn't
Oh,
trigger this on the back end.
oh, bummer.
No, that's
Um,
okay. You've gone through it. In fact, let's let somebody else try here to see
yeah.
it. You've seen the
Okay.
experience. Stacy, Colin, Kevin, one of you have it up where you want to try it real quick. And then at the end, just say goodbye and it will end the conversation and submit it.
Okay,
Mm.
I will. I'm on it now. Come on.
Hi, I'm Halls. Can I ask you some questions about your computer usage? It'll help us identify how AI can help you.
Sure.
Great. First, what computer tasks take more time than they should?
Hmm. I can't decide, guys. What computer tasks? Er. Um.
Take your time. Think about the tasks that feel slow or frustrating.
Uh. Cleaning out my inbox.
Got it. Why do you think cleaning out your inbox takes so much time?
Because there's so many unread emails and a lot of spam that I just need to clean out.
That makes sense. Besides that task, what's another task you repeat often?
Hmm. Uh, Cleaning up my desktop. It gets really messy.
I understand. What other parts of your daily workflow frustrate you the most?
Mm, don't have any other. That's it.
Thank you for sharing. It sounds like managing emails in your desktop takes a lot of your time. I'm wrapping up now.
Then
That was interesting.
tell it goodbye.
Oh, yeah, I ended it. He said, have a nice day. He's very, to the point.
Did you click the button or did he end it on his own?
He signed off verbally, but then I clicked the end a call at the end.
Yeah,
He just
and
kept on asking for more tasks and what was, expecting me to add more. I think the one thing, yeah, it's interesting. It's tough to kind of figure out how to have a really good conversation and then minding your, how much it costs to run these.
oh no, I'm not worried about that. I'm talking about doing this in a business thing where it could cost hundreds or thousands. I don't care about this money. This isn't a big deal.
Yeah,
So
it's
a couple
cool.
things there, and I need to make it clear when he signs off that you need to say goodbye and not press the button. And that's
Oh.
what took. So pressing the button caused that to not come through.
Oh,
But
I'm sorry. I didn't
no,
pay attention when
in
you
the
told.
interest of time here, I wondered if that might happen. So I've actually set up a demo here, and I saved a conversation of mine from earlier. And the questions on this particular conversation were a little bit different. And I particularly made them ambiguous at times because I put it in a sense where, for example, the second question that it asked, it could either stand on its own or it could be referential to the first question. And so I specifically asked the AI, like, what do you mean? Like in general, or is this related to what you just asked me? Because I wanted to see if it could handle that, because that's a
Mhm,
pretty common question when you ask people is trying to identify that.
mhm.
I think that's the one I have here. So let me save this, and I'm going to show you what happens here. What I've done is I've swapped out this webhook or that telephone operator that listens for the call, and I've just manually set some data here. And I've set the agent that you were talking to, which was Haas, and I've set it to the conversation ID of one I had earlier. And every conversation that you've had has one of these IDs. That's the unique identifier. Right here, I go out and make a call, and I'm just telling it, get me the conversation that has that unique identifier, and then it's going to go to Chat GPT. Now, these first couple steps will go really quick. I don't know how quickly it will update on your screen, but they're sub-second. Chat GPT is going to take maybe a second or two, but I'll click that to run. It will run. It's already past the first two. I have seen faster versions of this. Now, when I do this automation using another software called N8N, using local stuff, and I can get this really fast when I tell it to go out and use some third-party services. But each of these come through, and if you come down here, I'm just going to show you some really nerdy data stuff. This stuff here, well, let me that's the nature of the conversation I had. You see where it says role, assistant, content, hi, I'm Haas, and it puts timestamps and everything in it. This is real similar to the type of data that Google takes when it adds transcripts to videos, this kind of data where it puts timestamps with it. But of course, that's not what we want to work with. So then I take that data and we actually ask AI to translate it. And again, in the interest of time, I'm just going to jump back to its response and show you why did that not come up. Let me run it again real quickly. OpenAI has had some problems today with my responses, so hopefully it will come back this time. It's always the problem with doing live demos. All right. So I'm going to expand this and we'll zoom in and you can see the nature of this. Just typical expand work. Yeah, that works. All right. So the way it formatted from that junk you just saw, it comes back again. This is computer stuff that traditionally we wouldn't show to an end user. I'll take this next time and we'll put this into a database and then eventually put it in a UI that a human wants to see. But the first thing was where I was telling it about how when I want to apply to a job on Upwork specifically, I told it takes a lot of time. I got to find out what I want. There are so many jobs you got to deal with it. Again, it distilled it down. If you remember, I said take out all of the filler words or make it clear. Let's see. Then I went on to staying on top of emails is important, as well as Slack messages. And then it, again, dumbs that down or normalizes it. And that's the third thing finally here. Now, what that would represent is all of the questions that we decide to put on that. And I would gather them, say, for example, from all of you. And then they would go into a database. And then next time we'll teach AI, grab some sentiment, grab common themes, grab common topics, because one of the things AI is really good at doing is finding patterns that we don't always think are there. And so, what may seem like a problem that Tiffany outlines, it may make a connection to something that Kevin suggests that we didn't see. And it's like, well, if you did a solution like this, it would help both of them. And then the end result is that whatever it suggests, we can turn around and use as community curriculum for me to teach on. That's the nature of the project. That's the demo, and I don't want to keep it too long, but I do want to let you ask any questions about this. I could talk for hours.
This is
I
so
didn't.
cool.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Stacy.
No. I was just saying that this is really cool. I'd like to figure out how to make it. So that's my reaction, Gary, is just like, you're kind of taking us under the hood on, like we could go and use the technology with advanced voice quite easily. But as for companies that are exploring this is really interesting. Like, how the AIF team has these courses. I think you're already thinking about that. Have you created a video for this? I didn't watch all your videos, but to even what you showed us today, if you could create a video from start to beginning and just like use a very strong, use case up the top and how you do it, like honestly, you would bring in so many people going, I want to build that,
Well, so this actually is the use case. I'm showing you my development and testing on it. What will happen is everything I've done here will be on tutorial format exactly for you to follow, all the way from signing up for the service to creating the agent to the values you put in. And then at the end, I'll actually give you some of these services like make.com. I can create these automations in a downloadable form that you can load and import. So
Okay.
assuming that you're willing to, fill in a couple blanks, there will be a lot of hand holding. And because I think as I go through it, it will show a lot of people just exactly about where AI comes into play. In the case of the AI automation earlier, I showed you how we were using GPT in an LLM. Right here, I'm using ChatGPT to do summarization and extraction. Later on, I'm going to ask it for sentiment analysis and ratings. And so if we can start seeing, well, AI can do all these things, even if you don't take away the knowledge of how to create all of this from the ground up, just the fact that it can be done, and hopefully I'll show it can be done with relative ease, it should empower you to go to your communities and say, hey, we can do all this cool stuff if we just think about it.
So lots of thoughts. Like because I'm a marketer, my brain goes there. I'm thinking, create a demo, kind of a walkthrough, high level, put it on your YouTube channel, then go do a demo. Ask Drake and Carter, do a demo, and just say, hey, by the way, in January or in February, every Monday, similar to how I have my brand courses, I'm doing this so you can have, take the online courses that are recorded, but on Mondays we are going through Q&As and, going over each week. That's cool. Like, this is really
And that's
interesting.
actually
That's where my brain went. Sorry.
Yeah, no, they had actually asked me a while back if there was something I wanted to present, and
This is
I told them I had too many things and didn't know what I wanted to show, and they said pick one thing, and I could never pick one thing. So then I'm like, well, if I did this, I could showcase lots of things. So this is probably what I'll present to them to see if they're interested.
Yeah.
It at the very least, the deliverable of this is something that I want people to be able to use in any community, that they can go in and say, here's a little about me. What can AI help me with?
Yeah. I think the one thing is off the top, I didn't like, and maybe that's because I wasn't here on the previous calls, but I didn't understand your specific, like your example use case. Like it's like off the top, it's just like if you were trying to collect information from your customers, or you're selling A and you need to get feedback, just off the top so they can follow a storyline. That was the only thing in like
Got
in
it.
your YouTube video. And then also with the live demo, once I got over that to kind of understand, okay, what the objective is, like when you opened up the voice platform and what Play.AI and showing
What,
us how.
which YouTube video are you talking about? Is this one
Oh
I've
no,
done?
no, just now. I'm just
Oh, okay.
thinking
Okay.
that you should create a YouTube video for
Got it.
this.
Mhm.
And, obviously shorten it slightly, but to do a walkthrough and kind of say, this is what I built, how I did it, keep
Got
it
it.
high level, and then just say, join the community and I'll show you how to build it yourself.
That's great.
Um,
That's really good feedback.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, and then do a
Well,
demo in the AIF, and I would start a course in February. Just January, February, and you would
sure.
get people coming and joining your community from AIF, but you would also get the people from YouTube. Like so many people are so interested to see what's under the hood of these voice models. I'm gonna shut up now because I just got excited. But I don't
Well,
know if
good.
Colin or Tiffany or Kevin
Then
have
that
anything
tells
to
me
say.
we're on the right track with content.
Hmm.
Well, Gary, I've been very confused sitting here through this call. Like I missed everything before this, and I'm like, what is this? And what are you trying to do? And I'm still not sure.
Okay. So the 60 or 30-second summary is in our very first Link and Learn call, we had talked about what does the community want, because we're trying to service different people in the community, from people that like to get down in the weeds to people who are just relatively new to AI. So I'm trying to address this with automated one-on-one Zoom calls as people join the community. In fact, I just had one with Tiffany today. But those calls only get so far in so much time. The goal is to give every user that comes in the community an ability to tell us a little bit about them, so that we can kind of come up more or less with an AI learning plan, not only for them, but for the community as a whole, so that after we can see the common problems that the community is having, those are the very first things we're going to create content and courses for. And then, we can even automate this further and take the answers from an individual user. And going back to that whole knowledge base or RAG concept, I could even direct them to specific videos or topics or other things that might be really applicable to them. So that's the use case, is to try, because when they come in, it's like, I want to learn about AI, but I don't even know what it can do, and I don't know where to start.
Okay, that was a long 30-second description.
And I get really winded, or really worried, as
Well,
you
no,
know.
no, no. I'm trying to distill it down. And so it sounds like you want a community interview that someone can interact with to gather information and then provide them information.
So the information won't come back immediately.
Yeah,
The original PDFs, if you want to go review those, kind of outline the whole program and how we would use it. But yes, there would be a return on that, as we'd get the information, parse it, and come up with something where we could get back to them, but it wouldn't necessarily be during or immediately after the call.
Well, is that the final product you're envisioning?
So originally, I wanted to come up with an idea to get people's take on what they wanted to learn about. Now, where the final demarcation point is, I don't know. I mean, I can do a lot of final
it can
demarcation.
change. I mean, is that your current version or vision of what you're producing? I see you building a complex system, and you're going into details to build the process and all that, but I don't know what the beginning point and the end point is. I feel like you're giving me all the middle, but I'm like, what's the entry point? Who's that for? And what's the result?
Got it.
Because I'm missing that. I'm not saying it isn't there. I'm
Sure.
confused. That's all.
Got it. And
How
then
do you
I,
envision this being used, and who's the user and what's the interface? Are they, you mentioned Zoom, or you're doing a demo right now with voice chat over, you click the link, ask questions and stuff. So that makes it sound like it's an interview. But the point is just to learn about the person. I mean, like you did with the when you do a one-on-one.
Pretty much, yeah. And the if you do want to go back and look at the PDF, and you probably missed that at the beginning, that actually is out there in terms of who we're targeting, why so many things might seem more complex than they need to be, because I'm trying to explain different technologies as we go, kind of as a showcase. But this tells you the input, how we're gathering the data, and what we're doing and why. But I do think what you said there in terms of kind of like a quick introduction and overview would be appropriate, and most definitely will be there before I start producing any videos on that.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah,
good
I mean,
point.
you need the sales pitch. What's the problem you're solving? And who's this for, and what's the reason to do it, and what do you expect from it? And I know I've missed the first half,
Mhm.
but honestly, when I'm asking you about it, you haven't given it to me in a clear way. So that makes me wonder, do you know what you're trying to build? And I could be wrong. I'm sure I'm the one who's confused here.
Well, I don't know about that. My ability to express myself most likely and most definitely isn't clear if I haven't conveyed it. But yes, in my mind as a stakeholder, I know exactly who this is for and the use case. In fact, what I'll do prior to next week's call is I'll take this away and I will create that video before next week, so it should be eminently clear on what this is.
Okay, because I did go back and I glanced at the PDFs. That's what I was
Okay,
doing on my phone at the first part when
sure,
you started this, because I'm like, okay, I know I'm coming in the middle. I need to go do some research. But when I glanced through them, I didn't see anything that caught my eye that
fair
gave me
enough.
a
And that's
anchor,
excellent feedback.
an anchor for what you're doing. So, and granted, that could be all me and it was there, but that's why I asked.
No, and this is why I ask for feedback constantly, is because uh, expression can be very difficult, right? Sometimes in our head, we believe we're conveying ideas that we're not. And ultimately, that's going to cause a breakdown, not only between me, but pretty much everyone in the community. So that's exactly the feedback I need, and I will go and take that, and depending on the quality of what I come back with, we'll iterate on it until it is very clear what we're doing.
Mhm.
I
I
I
see
mean,
it
I'm
as
super interested in all the technology and the approaches, and watching you do it is amazing just to see someone playing with the tools and solving a problem. But I'm still confused as to what's the problem that you're solving.
and I think yeah, it's just a matter, like, it's pretty simple. I think honestly, it's a lot less work than, what most people struggle with, which is the middle of, doing that demo and creating it. So I agree with Colin. It's just like the intro, like the use case, because like what you offer is gold, Gary. Like once I kind of
Yeah.
like started like following along in the demo, I was just like, hot damn, this is sellable. This is so good. It's just like, yeah, I was kind of asking for the use case. And so from hearing, you talk to Colin, it's for me, it's twofold. It's just the use case for you personally is to better understand the community and their needs, when, why they joined, what are they looking to know and learn, and then, turn that into action. So I see it that this bot is going to be a pin post, and it's kind of an intro, and it's just like, here's, if you need any help or have any feedback, go talk to Haas.
Right.
And, to help us, provide better service. So it's a service agent um, that's collecting info to help make your business, conduct better customer service. So yeah, it's a customer service agent for sure. But then the second part is this is part of your learning material where you are going to teach others how to create a voice bot or whatever. I don't know what this is called. Voice agent, and that's remarkable. Like even somebody that is novice, like if they're not going to build it to kind of understand the how this is built is pretty remarkable.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I
Thank
rambled on
Uh,
too, Colin. I'm not much better at
no,
communication, but I do see
we
a lot of
we
potential with this.
I think we're all a little talk too much. Um, Not using my words well though. I think an elevator pitch would be nice. And then as a comment to getting into this interface, I think you need an introduction. Haas needs to introduce himself and say what we are, what is Haas asking for? So that when the questions pop up, they don't come out of left field. It's like I'm going to ask you, hi, welcome to the community. Here's my reason for being here to ask you a few questions. I'm going to ask you about this, and this. If are you ready to have that conversation? And so that's a lead in to get them prepped to start answering questions and you can tell them, take your time. I'm not, I don't want you to feel rushed. Think about how, what the question is, and,
Right.
give me, what you think. But if you just say, what's this? Or, what's your biggest problem? That's too big of a, a question. Everybody is going to balk at that and not, you kind of need to lead them up to provide some constraints as to what they are searching for in their mind to give you a question. Because if the question's too large, it's hard to come up with an answer.
Right. And I think part of it is too is making sure that we draw the distinction is that what we present here on these calls, um, these are proofs of concept and exploratory things. They're so far from anything I would ever release to production. It is kind of the nature of I have a system I'm building, and at the same time still wanting to showcase to the community this is where I went this week. This is what I looked at. This is where my ideas are taking me. So all of those things absolutely need to be done. And they're things that typically within application development always go through, we call, I'm sure you're familiar, UX or user experience testing. So everything needs to happen along that before, of course, any of this is done. But yeah, I agree. Even seeing the interactions today, the questions came out of left field, but
You have to
the
deal with the
nature
button
of
pushing.
yeah,
That's all
the
about
nature.
beta testing. That's why beta testing exists.
Oh, I wish this were beta. Yeah, no, this really is just a proof of concept to
Okay.
showcase that data can flow through the system and that I can manipulate it the way I want, not only in parsing, but in terms of AI comprehending it. And so, in what I would do in an exploratory phase of a project like this is it would still be considered proof of concept phase where I'm just trying to go through and make sure that there isn't any major red flag that's going to prevent me from doing what I believe I can do.
Technically, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Because that's the thing with AI. It can do so much, you're not sure what it can and can't do. And then when you try, your first instinct is, oh yeah, it can solve every problem in the world, or someone gives you a problem, AI can solve that. But then when you sit down to solve it, you have to break it down into all the component steps. Then you realize, oh, AI can't do that.
Absolutely.
Except I don't think any of us have come across that yet, what AI can't do, you know?
Oh yeah, I have.
What's
I
that?
run into it all the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
every day I'm like, nope, I'm still better off doing that by myself. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was
Yes.
somebody in the other community wanted to automate LinkedIn in message, the direct messages, and so to have a conversational kind of text bot within the direct message. And you can't do that. LinkedIn's just saying, no, we're not going to allow any API integration here. So which I don't know. The
Yeah,
person's
but
probably upset with me,
that's
but
a LinkedIn restriction, not an AI capability restriction.
that's true. Yes, yes. Okay, Colin, you corrected me on that, but that's what came, right to mind. I'm like, well, can't do that. And that person's
Yep.
probably not
No,
happy we didn't
roadblock
respond.
can't work around it.
Yep.
well,
Cool.
thank you all for attending. I have kept you way past the hour that I intended, but you've given me your time, and that's right now the most valuable thing you can give, and I appreciate it, as well as just your participation in the community. It means so much. So thank you. And if there's any way at all that I can help any of you, please let me know.
I'm excited
Okay.
about this, Gary. Great work.
Well,
Yeah.
it
Yes.
will become more polished and more laid out, and I think getting that intro video and sales pitch done will go a long way to kind of outlining what the project is, and we'll even introduce it to the community, because other than a handful of people that have been on these calls, I haven't really talked about it in the community much.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very
Gary,
cool.
Gary, I just wanted to add real quick. It's like, for someone, I'm trying to give perspective from someone who doesn't know anything about this, is that it's really cool to see that so much work going the behind the scene thing. I 90% of my job is interview face to face. And something I thought is so simple, but then, it will take a lot of thought process behind to make it more natural. So I'm just saying that I really appreciate to be able to see behind the scene how much work it is. So when we do ask for, let's say, work to come up with something easier for us, we gotta appreciate the people behind the scene working on
Well,
these
you are so
process.
kind, and I will say, when I was talking to you today in our intro call, when you first mentioned that, they weren't even letting you record anything, that you had to take manual notes, my heart just broke, because like you said, those
Yeah.
those people want the individual attention and the eye contact, but meanwhile, you're trying to take notes. Something like this would be helpful, and hopefully we'll
Yes.
get to the point where, your agency will allow you to do that.
Yes, definitely. So just want to add that real quick, not draw out any more time. So thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Well, everyone, have a great day. I appreciate
You
your time.
too. Thanks,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Gary.
everyone.
Yeah. Nice meeting
Bye.
you all. Okay, bye-bye.
See you, Tiffany.